My name is Samantha Miller. I'm 31, and I'm an interior designer. I create beautiful, functional spaces. The irony? For years, my own life was a monument to a beautiful lie, a cluttered mess of betrayal. This is the story of how I won my life back. It all centered on this, my grandmother Eleanor's country house. A legacy meant just for me, which my family saw as nothing but a commodity. The day I discovered the truth, I was simply looking for a photo on my mom's phone. I saw a text from my dad to her, "Contact the realtor. Natalie wants to see condos in the city. The house sale can cover the down payment." It hit me like ice water. A cold, calculated plan. My grandmother's legacy, the one thing that was truly mine, was reduced to a line item. To them, it wasn't love. It wasn't history. It wasn't a piece of me. It was just a financial asset, a bargaining chip, a tool to fund my pregnant sister's new life without a single thought for me. Growing up, our family looked perfect in photos. A happy mom and dad, 2 sisters. But if you looked closely, you'd see it. My parents, David and Diane, had their golden child, my sister Natalie. Natalie was the star. The one who got the best grades, the lead in the school play, the first to get married. Everything she did was a masterpiece. And I was the audience. My only escape from that constant comparison was my grandmother, Eleanor. Summers at her country house were my refuge. She was the one who saw me, really saw me. Not as Natalie's little sister, but as me. She didn't care about school plays or perfect grades. She taught me how to garden, how to bake. She taught me independence. Her love wasn't a prize I had to earn. It was a gift. When she passed, her legacy was more than just a house. It was a promise. The one place I was truly seen, truly loved, was now truly mine. Or so I thought. My parents saw it as a family asset, my sister's future. At home, the conversation was always about Natalie, her achievements, her future. I was just there, like a piece of furniture in the background. My voice was a whisper in a room that was always shouting her name. But at Grandma's, it was different. She had a way of making you feel like the most important person in the world. She taught me to see the beauty in a quiet moment, in the dirt under my fingernails. We'd spend hours in the garden. She'd say, "Patience, Samantha. Good things take time to grow." It wasn't just about the plants. It was about me. She saw my potential, even when no one else did. She taught me to bake her famous apple pie. She let me make a mess. At home, everything had to be perfect. With Grandma, it was okay to be imperfect. Her house was my sanctuary, the one place I truly belonged. That's what made the betrayal so much worse. The one place that represented unconditional love and acceptance, the one place that was truly mine, was the very thing they tried to take. They wanted to sell my sanctuary. After Grandma passed, the house was silent. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was a peaceful one. The silence of a place that knew me. That held my secrets and my memories. This house was my sanctuary. Every dusty book on the shelf, every chipped teacup, they were like old friends. They had seen me grow up. I wasn't just in the house, I was a part of it. I had never felt that way anywhere else. This was my foundation. The one thing in my life that wasn't built on a conditional if. If I was good, if I was quiet, if I was not a problem. This was just mine, a gift without strings attached. My plan was to restore it, to honor my grandmother's memory. It was my passion project. My home. The place where I could finally just be Samantha. I was so full of hope. The day I found out, my heart dropped. It was a normal Sunday. I was with my mom, and her phone buzzed with a text. I saw the name David, my dad. The message preview was a punch to the gut. I went to her phone later, my hands shaking. I read it all. The text to realtors, the emails about market value. A condo listing for Natalie, a new life for her. Paid for with my grandmother's love. My parents were planning to sell the one thing that was truly mine. the one place that was my sanctuary. They didn't even ask. They just saw it as a financial asset, a pawn in their plan to secure Natalie's future. This wasn't just about money. It was about a lifetime of being second best. A lifetime of my parents showing me, in no uncertain terms, that my love, my feelings, my inheritance, they all meant nothing. When I confronted them with the evidence, they didn't deny it. They didn't apologize. They just went straight to the script. The one they had perfected over a lifetime of favoring Natalie. It's for the family, Samantha. My mom's voice was firm but cold. Natalie is having a baby. She needs a fresh start. A home for her family. What are you going to do with a dusty old house in the country? It's much more valuable to us, to the family. My dad, David, didn't hesitate to echo her. Your grandmother would have wanted this. She'd want us to support Natalie. It's a small sacrifice for the family. Don't be selfish, Samantha. That word, selfish, it cut deeper than any knife. Because it wasn't just a word, it was the label they had branded me with for years whenever I dared to want something of my own. In that moment, the truth hit me like a storm. This wasn't about Natalie's future. It was about control. They wanted the house because it was something they couldn't control. And they couldn't stand the thought of me having something that was truly, completely mine. Driving away, their words echoed in my head. Selfish. For the family. For a moment, I almost believed them. Almost gave in. But then a quiet voice inside me spoke up. It wasn't my voice. It was Grandma Eleanor's. I remembered her holding my hands in the garden, telling me the strongest roots are the ones that grow in the rockiest soil. This was my rocky soil. And I was going to grow. I was going to be strong. This wasn't just a house anymore. It was a symbol. A last stand. It was my grandmother's love, her trust, her belief in me. Giving it up would mean giving up on her. Giving up on myself. The betrayal felt different now. It was no longer a wound. It was a fuel. A cold, quiet, steady fire in my belly. They had underestimated me my entire life. They were about to learn that was a mistake. I was no longer just a passive observer. I was no longer the quiet audience. I wasn't going to just let them have it. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to get ahead of them. I was going to beat them at their own game. After the confrontation, the anger was still there, but underneath it was a deep, raw hurt. I felt untethered, like the ground beneath me had cracked open. I knew I had to act, but I didn't know how. So I did the only thing I could. I sought help. I sat in my therapist's office, unloading everything. The favoritism, the lies, the texts about selling my grandmother's house. I expected her to nod, to fuel my anger. But instead, she said something that cut through me like glass. Samantha, you can't keep allowing others to wound you. It was so simple, yet it shook me. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just a victim of their cruelty. I had been giving them power, again and again, by staying in the cycle. By letting them define my worth. This wasn't about the house. It wasn't even about the money. It was about a lifelong pattern. One they had perfected and one I had enabled. My family wasn't going to change. But I could. Her final words lit a fire in me. Your revenge isn't about getting even. It's about self-preservation. Protect your peace. Your silence is your power. Use it wisely. I walked out of that office with a new mission. My goal wasn't to destroy my family. My goal was to save myself, to build a wall so high and so strong that their toxicity could never touch me again. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I had to do. After that therapy session, my focus shifted. I stopped thinking about what they deserved and started thinking about what I needed. What I needed was to protect my inheritance and my sanity, and I knew how to do it. My family operated in the shadows. They made their plans in secret behind my back. So I decided I would do the same. This wasn't a public war. This was a private, silent act of self-preservation. Late into the night, I was on my computer. Instead of looking at their real estate listings, I was creating my own. I researched realtors, looked at comparable sales. I needed someone who was discreet and efficient. I found the right one. I made a single phone call. No fanfare, no drama. Just a business transaction. I want to sell my grandmother's house, I said. And I want to do it quickly and quietly. Within a week, I had a buyer. Someone who loved the house for what it was, not what it could be sold for. A family who saw a home, not a commodity. And I finalized the sale, all without a single word to my own family. The nights were the hardest. The phone was quiet, but my mind was a battlefield. I had a secret. A big one. And it was heavy. Was I becoming just like them? Acting in the shadows? Was I a liar now too? I'd look at the photo of Grandma Eleanor. Her kind eyes seemed to ask, "What are you doing, my dear?" I'd imagine her disappointed. That was the real pain, not the betrayal, but the thought of dishonoring her gift. But then, I would remember her words. She didn't teach me how to be a victim. She taught me how to be strong. She taught me that sometimes you have to do the hard thing to protect what you love. The house was a symbol of her love. It was a tangible thing. But her true gift was the independence she instilled in me. The ability to stand on my own 2 feet. That was the legacy I had to protect. They wanted to sell the house for greed, to fund a life that was already handed to Natalie on a silver platter. I was selling it for peace. For my own life. For a chance to finally, truly belong to myself. I was doing it for my grandmother's memory. To show them that her gift wasn't just another asset to be plundered. It was sacred. And I was her protector. Every time the realtor called with an update, a part of me felt a jolt of fear. What if they found out? What if they came after me? But a bigger part of me felt something new. Power. The power to say no more. My inner struggle wasn't about the act of selling. It was about reconciling the old me, the girl who just wanted to be loved, with the new me, the woman who was finally taking a stand. I had to let go of the fantasy of a perfect family. I had to let go of the idea that they would ever see me. I had to choose myself. And it hurt. It hurt so much to choose myself over the illusion of family. But with every click of a button, with every document signed, I felt the chains loosen. I was not just getting revenge. I was buying my own freedom, one painful step at a time. The morning I decided to break the news, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. I called my parents and Natalie and asked them to meet me at a neutral location. Their voices were filled with an unusual sweetness, a condescending tone that made it clear they assumed they had already won. They showed up to the cafe with fake smiles and a rehearsed eagerness, ready to discuss my future. My mom, Diane, had a folder of real estate listings, and my dad, David, had a grin on his face. They were so confident. I just sat across from them, sipped my tea, and let the silence build. Finally, my dad spoke, a hint of impatience in his voice. "Samantha, we're so glad you've come to your senses. This is for the best, you know. The market is hot. We can get you set up in a condo just as soon as we finalize the sale. It's so much more practical for a single woman." Natalie, never one for subtlety, piped up. "Yeah, Sam, it's not like you're going to have a family to fill that house. A condo is perfect for you. And we need the money for my baby's nursery. This is a win-win." My mom nodded. "Exactly. This is about being a family. It's about helping each other. Your grandmother would have wanted this." My hands were clasped in my lap. I didn't get angry. I didn't shout. I just smiled faintly and said the words I had been waiting to say for weeks. "Oh, Mom, you don't have to worry about the sale," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's already been finalized." I watched their faces. First confusion, then dawning horror. It was more satisfying than I could have imagined. The silence that followed was deafening. My dad's jaw went slack. My mom's coffee cup rattled against the saucer, spilling half its contents. Natalie, who had been on her phone, looked up with a blank stare, her mouth slightly open. The air went still. My dad was the first to recover. His face turned a shade of purple. "What do you mean finalized? You didn't tell us. You can't just sell it." I looked at him calmly. "I mean, I sold it. A private sale. All legal, all done." Natalie finally found her voice, her tone turning from smug to shrill. "You can't do that. That's my baby's future. That's our money." My mom just stared at me, a look of pure hatred on her face. Her perfect facade, her beautiful lie, had been torn to shreds. In that moment, I wasn't their quiet little girl anymore. I was a woman who had taken back her power. I had done exactly what they had planned to do, but on my terms. I had turned their weapon against them. This wasn't just a bold move. It was an act of liberation. The silence that followed my announcement was the calm before the storm. Their faces went from shock to a boiling, venomous rage. It was like I had just watched them shed their skin. All the pretense was gone. Natalie screamed first. "You did what, you selfish little witch? That's my baby's future you just stole. You were supposed to give it to us. This was for our family." My mom slammed her hand on the table, making the cups jump. "How could you do this, Samantha? We trusted you. You've ruined everything. What about Natalie's baby? Are you going to condemn your own niece to a life without a home?" They were so focused on me, on my so-called betrayal, they never stopped to think about their own. I had to remind them, "You were going to do the exact same thing to me. Remember? The private texts, the realtor emails. You were going to sell my legacy and give the money to Natalie." My dad's face hardened. "That was different. We're your family. This was a family decision. You're just so ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, you spit in our faces." I smiled faintly, calmly. "I sold it to a young family with 2 children. They saw a home, not a commodity. They are going to live there, raise a family there. My grandmother would have loved them." The air crackled. My dad stood up, his face red with fury. "This isn't over. We'll get a lawyer. We'll sue you. You'll regret this, Samantha. You're dead to us." I stood up too, but without a single wasted movement. I looked from my mother's hateful stare to my father's empty threats. "You can try," I said softly, "but you're too late. The paperwork is signed. The house is no longer a part of your greed. It's a home for a family that will actually love it." I turned to Natalie. "As for your baby, you have my best wishes. May he or she have a more loving and honest family than you and I ever had." I put a few bills on the table for my tea and started to walk away. My mom shrieked my name, but I didn't look back. I had spent a lifetime looking back at their anger and their disappointment. Not anymore. I walked out of the cafe and left my past right there on that table. The facade was gone. The minute I said finalized, their controlled anger shattered into a public spectacle. My father, David, stood up so fast his chair clattered to the floor, drawing every eye in the cafe. He was shouting now, his voice raw with fury. "Who did you sell it to? You have to tell us. You can't just do this. It was a family asset. We were going to get Natalie the house for her baby." My mom, Diane, began to cry, a performative, dramatic sob that was meant to make me feel guilty. "How could you do this to us? You've abandoned your family. You've betrayed us, your own flesh and blood." Natalie was completely hysterical now. She was half sobbing, half shrieking. "I hate you, Samantha. You always ruined everything. This was my future. My baby's future. I wish you were never born." My parents and sister were so consumed by their rage that they didn't even see the irony. They were accusing me of being selfish and family destroying while doing it themselves right there, in front of a dozen strangers. I just sat there motionless. It wasn't a victory of revenge. It was a victory of truth. The truth that they were not a family built on love, but on transaction. This public display was the proof I needed. My dad leaned over the table, his face inches from mine. "You think this is funny? You think you can just take what's ours and get away with it? You have no idea who you're messing with." I just looked at him with a calm, neutral expression. "It was my inheritance, Dad. My name was on the will. Grandma left it to me. It was never ours. It was always mine." My mom's voice turned from a sob to a vicious hiss. "That's not how families work. You don't hoard things from your own blood. You have no heart, Samantha." I stood up slowly, calmly collecting my things. My movements were deliberate. "I learned from the best," I said softly. "When you get something, you protect it. You just taught me to do it more quietly and more efficiently." My father's face went white with fury. "We'll get a lawyer. You'll regret this." I just smiled at him, a real smile this time. "I have a great lawyer, Dad. The paperwork is legally binding. You're too late." I turned to my family one last time. They were a mess of tears and rage and public humiliation. I was free. I turned my back and started to walk out of the cafe, away from them, for good. I left them sitting there. The cafe was silent, save for the hum of conversation that slowly returned. But the silence at their table was deafening. They were a shattered portrait of a family, a public display of their inner chaos. My dad, David, just stared at the spot where I had been. He hadn't just lost the house. He had lost control. He had been outmaneuvered by the daughter he always dismissed. His face was a mask of furious disbelief. My mom, Diane, was still crying, but the performative nature was gone. It was real, panicked. She was a woman whose careful plan had just been ripped to shreds. The decades of manipulation, all for nothing. And Natalie, she was a shell. She looked at her phone, at the condo listing she had been sent, and her whole body sagged. The free money was gone. The new life was gone. She was just left with her own empty ambition. They had always seen my grandmother's house as a bargaining chip, something to be exploited for their own gain. What they didn't know was that I had outplayed them on every level. The truth was, their plan wasn't just about getting Natalie a condo. It was about them, too. They planned to take a significant commission from the sale, a fee for managing the estate. They were going to profit from my grief. That's the secret I kept, the one that made me smile as I walked away. I didn't just foil their plan. I stole their own hidden profit. I had taken back not just my inheritance, but the money they felt entitled to. The cafe patrons were staring openly now. Their private argument had become a public spectacle, and the truth was laid bare for all to see. Their perfect family facade was gone forever. This wasn't just a revenge story. It was a story of a woman learning to value herself, to protect her heart, to honor her loved ones by not letting their gifts be turned into tools of manipulation and greed. The final shot shows the family sitting in silence, a picture of defeat. They had lost more than a house. They had lost their power over me, and that was the greatest victory of all. The silence after I told them about the foundation was different, not shock. It was the silence of a truth bomb. They had nothing left to say, no argument to make. They had been outplayed, and they knew it. I saw a flicker of something in my mother's eyes, a spark of confusion. They still didn't understand the why. So I gave them one last piece of the story, the most important piece of all. I told them about the last conversation I had with Grandma Eleanor, just a week before she passed. We were in her garden, and she was watching me. She knew. She always knew what was going on. She looked at me and said, "The house isn't just a home, Samantha. It's a test. A test of your strength, and a test of their greed. I wanted to see if they would show you their true colors, and if you would be strong enough to see them." My mom's eyes widened in recognition. My dad's face, which had been contorted with fury, now just looked broken. The truth hit them. The house wasn't a gift to be exploited. It was a mirror held up to their souls. "She knew what you were going to do," I said, my voice heavy with sadness. "She knew you would come for it, not because you needed it, but because you couldn't stand the thought of me having something that was truly mine. a part of her legacy. Natalie just sat there quiet for the first time. The tears on her cheeks were not from rage now, but from the realization that her grandmother never truly trusted her. The ultimate sign of favoritism was not the house, but the lesson. She wanted me to be strong, to not give in to emotional blackmail, and she wanted to give her legacy to a family who would truly appreciate it. Not just a family who was bound by blood, but one bound by love. I looked at them, and I knew I had succeeded. I placed a single piece of paper on the table. A letter from Grandma Eleanor, dated a week before she passed. "My dear Samantha, if you are reading this, you have passed the test. You have found your strength. The house and its value are yours. Do with it what you feel is right. I know you will choose wisely." My mom's hand reached for the letter, but I stopped her. "Don't. It's not for you. This was our secret. It was a secret I had to keep to protect us both. And I did. I protected her legacy from your greed, and I protected myself from your toxicity. I was finally telling them the whole truth." I placed Grandma Eleanor's letter on the table and stood up. Their faces were a portrait of disbelief. Their anger had been replaced by a terrible dawning shame. I didn't say a word. There was nothing left to say. My mom, Diane, was the first to speak. Her voice wasn't a shriek anymore. It was a broken whisper. "Samantha, please don't do this. Don't just leave. We can still be a family. Please." I looked at her, and my heart didn't ache. It was a strange, peaceful emptiness. "You're right, Mom. We could have been a family, but that was before you chose greed over love. That was before you and Dad tried to steal from your own daughter." Natalie tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled it back. "Sam, come on, we're sisters. We can get through this. You have to forgive us. We'll find a way to get the money back. We can still be a family." I shook my head. "No, Natalie, we won't. You and I were never sisters. We were always rivals for our parents' love, and I finally realized that the game was never worth playing. The house was the prize, but the real victory was getting out of the competition altogether." My dad, David, finally spoke again. His voice was hollow. What did you gain? You have nothing now. You've lost your family for a fleeting moment of victory. You'll be alone." I smiled at him. It was a sad, gentle smile. "No, Dad, you're wrong. I didn't lose my family. I never had one to begin with. What I gained was my freedom, my dignity, my peace. Things you can't buy with money or a house." I took one last, long look at them. Their faces were a twisted mess of regret and shame. They were no longer angry. They were defeated. I had won the battle, and I had also won the war. I turned my back and started to walk away. I didn't rush. My footsteps were slow and deliberate. I was walking away from a lifetime of neglect, a lifetime of manipulation, a lifetime of feeling small and insignificant. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It wasn't just the burden of the house. It was the burden of their expectations, their judgment, and their impossible standards. I was finally free. I looked up at the sky. It was a beautiful day. The city felt alive. The world was full of possibilities. I felt like I was seeing everything for the first time. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The money from the house would go on to help so many young women. Each home they bought, each family they built, would be a new chapter in my grandmother's legacy. It was a far more beautiful purpose than any they could have dreamed of. My family was left behind, a portrait of their own making. Their public humiliation would be a permanent stain. They had lost the house, the money, and most importantly, they had lost me. They had a family, but they chose to destroy it for greed. They could never blame me for being selfish. My actions proved the exact opposite. Their fury was not because I took something from them, but because I prevented them from taking something from me. The story of family revenge isn't about getting even. It's about drawing a line in the sand. It's about standing tall when they want you to fall. It's about protecting your peace at all costs. And that day, in that cafe, Samantha Miller stood tall. She walked out of their lives and into her own. She was no longer a pawn in their game. She was the hero of her own story. The months following the cafe showdown were filled with silence. I received no calls, no texts. I didn't reach out either. The public scene had been the final, definitive ending I needed. But there were still loose ends to tie up. I requested a final meeting, a quiet one in a neutral space. The park by the lake. When they arrived, the difference was striking. My parents and Natalie weren't angry. They were defeated. The fire was gone, replaced by resignation. We sat on a bench, a few feet of silence between us. My dad, David, cleared his throat. We tried to get a lawyer, Samantha. They said there was nothing we could do. The sale was legal. The foundation is locked. You were right. I just nodded. I didn't feel a rush of satisfaction. I felt a profound sadness. It was the end. The final chapter of a book one never wanted to write. I know, I said simply. I made sure of it. My mom, Diane, spoke next. Her voice was raspy. So what now, Samantha? Is that it? You just cut us out of your life. After everything. She looked at me, a silent plea for forgiveness. I looked at her with compassion, but also with finality. This isn't an act of revenge, Mom. It's an act of self-preservation. You can't put a price on peace. And my peace was being destroyed by your constant need for more. Natalie, sitting next to my mom, was quiet. She was looking at the lake. So, she said quietly, you never cared about us. All that talk about Grandma's legacy, you just used it to get back at us. You're still selfish. I sighed. No, Natalie. I didn't use it to get back at you. I used it to protect myself. The foundation is a testament to that. I made sure the money helped others, not just me. I didn't want to become like you. My dad looked down at his hands. We lost a lot of money. The lawyer's fees, and now we're struggling. We don't have enough to get Natalie the nursery she needs. I felt a pang of sadness, but I knew it wasn't my burden to carry. That's not my problem, I said, my voice soft but firm. Your choices have consequences. And you chose greed. I chose peace. My hands are clean. My mom was quiet for a long time. She finally looked up, her eyes red. Is this it, Samantha? Is this the last time we'll see you? You won't even come to see your future niece or nephew? I felt a tear form in my eye. It was for the family I never had, for the parents who chose money over me. I stood up. My family is not here. My future is not here. My peace is not here. This is the last time. Goodbye. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had said everything. I had done everything. The final act of family revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about saving myself. The months after I walked away were a journey into the unknown. I had no family, no home, no old life to go back to. It was terrifying and it was liberating. I was finally building something for myself. My new apartment was a small, 2-bedroom place with an oversized window and a tiny balcony. It wasn't a mansion filled with ghosts. It was a home filled with sunlight. For the first time, I felt like I truly belonged. I started working as a freelance writer. It was something I had always wanted to do, but my parents had always discouraged. My life was no longer about profit. It was about purpose. I made new friends, people who didn't know my past. They were friends who laughed at my jokes, listened to my stories, and didn't have a single agenda. They were my chosen family. The Eleanor Foundation became the center of my world. I spent most of my time there working with young women, helping them apply for grants to get their first homes. I was giving them the opportunity my grandmother gave me. I remember one woman, a single mother with a little boy. She cried when she received the grant approval. Her gratitude was so genuine, so pure. It was a feeling my family had never given me. Every time I helped someone, I felt Grandma Eleanor's presence. I felt her pride. The house wasn't gone. Its value, its purpose, its love was multiplying, living on in the lives of others. One day, I got a piece of news from a distant cousin. My parents' lawsuit against me had been dismissed. They had spent a fortune and ended up with nothing. Natalie's baby was born, but they were struggling, still blaming me. I felt no satisfaction. Only a quiet, final pity. They had been given a choice: to show love and grow, or to show greed and lose everything. They chose greed, and they were now living with the consequences. I realized that the true victory wasn't just about walking away. It was about what I walked towards. A life built on authenticity, on purpose, on genuine connection. A life that was truly mine. My grandmother had given me more than a house. She had given me a chance to see my family for who they really were. And in doing so, she had given me the strength to save myself from them. This is not a story about revenge. It's a story about liberation. It's about choosing yourself. It's about understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your family is to leave them behind. The Eleanor Foundation still thrives today. It has helped hundreds of women, and every time I meet one of them, I know I made the right choice. My house is not a memory. It's a living legacy. The finality of our last meeting left me with an unexpected peace. I had a new home, a new life, a new sense of purpose. But a piece of my past, a small, tangible one, still remained. I was unpacking an old box from my grandmother's house, filled with things my family had deemed worthless. Old books, forgotten letters, a small, carved wooden box. It was a treasure trove of true sentiment. Inside the box, I found a small, worn leather-bound ledger. It wasn't a financial record. This was something else. A book of memories kept by my grandmother just for us. The pages were filled with handwritten notes in her elegant script. It chronicled moments my family had forgotten. The time I read to her in the garden. The day she taught me to bake her apple pie. All the small moments they overlooked. I realized this was her true legacy. Not the house, not the money, but the love she had for me. A love she had recorded in these pages, knowing my family would never see it because they weren't looking for love. The final page had a note, dated the day before she passed. My dearest Samantha, I leave you with a final gift. The freedom to be yourself. The house was a test. The key is now yours to bury the past and build a new future. I am so proud. I closed the ledger. The words echoed in my mind. The key, the past, the future. It was time for my final symbolic gesture. It was time to truly bury the past and begin a new chapter. I went out to my small balcony. I had a few potted plants there. I found an empty pot. I took a small silver key from the bottom of the ledger. The key to the gate of her garden. I put the key inside the empty pot. I filled the pot with soil. I then gently placed the worn leather ledger on top of the soil. The memories, the lesson were now buried. I took a small sapling I had bought, a sapling of a flowering tree. I carefully planted it in the pot. This wasn't just a plant. It was a symbol. A living monument to my grandmother's love. I looked at the pot, at the tiny sapling reaching for the sun. From the buried past, a new future would grow. A future rooted in love and strength, not in greed and manipulation. I had finally won. The story of family revenge isn't about getting a house or money. It's about finding your own home. It's about cultivating your own peace. It's about burying the toxicity of your past and planting seeds for a future all your own. Time is a strange thing. It can heal wounds or deepen them. For me, time was a new beginning. For them, it was a slow, painful reckoning. Years passed since I walked away from the park. My life was simple, full, and quiet. I had my friends, my work, and the Eleanor Foundation. My chosen family had grown. I was loved for who I was, not for what I had. I rarely thought about them. They were like characters in a book one had already finished. But sometimes, a piece of news would find its way to me. a sad echo from a world I no longer inhabited. My parents' reputation had never recovered from the public spectacle. They were now social outcasts, their former friends avoiding them. They were left with nothing but their bitter memories of what could have been. David had become withdrawn, his arrogance replaced by a quiet, brooding despair. He had tried to rebuild his business, but no one trusted him anymore. He had lost his legacy and his self-respect. Diane's socialite facade had crumbled. Her frantic attempts to reconnect with old friends were met with cold shoulders. She was left to gossip with herself, her voice a constant, bitter complaint about me and my betrayal. And Natalie. Her baby was now a toddler. But without the promised house money, her life was a constant struggle. Her perfect fairy tale had turned into a never-ending nightmare. She blamed everyone but herself. The greatest irony was that my family had everything they wanted. They had each other. They had their so-called family unit, but they were more miserable together than they ever were apart. My final act wasn't to punish them. It was to prove to myself that I was no longer a victim. It was the moment I chose to stop reacting to their toxicity and start creating my own destiny. They could never take my peace. They could never take my freedom. The house, the money, the family, all of it was just a stage for them to reveal their true nature. And I was lucky enough to walk off that stage for good. My final stand wasn't a fight. It was a refusal to engage. It was a peaceful surrender of a past that was never truly mine. It was a silent statement that I valued my mental health over their manipulation. The lesson is clear. Sometimes the best revenge is to leave a toxic family to their own devices. To let them destroy themselves while you quietly build a beautiful life, far away from their chaos. The house, the money, the family, all of it was just a stage for them to reveal their true nature. And I was lucky enough to walk off that stage for good. My final stand wasn't a fight. It was a refusal to engage. It was a peaceful surrender of a past that was never truly mine. It was a silent statement that I valued my mental health over their manipulation. The lesson is clear. Sometimes the best revenge is to leave a toxic family to their own devices. To let them destroy themselves while you quietly build a beautiful life, far away from their chaos. My social circle is small, but it's real. My friends didn't need to know my story to love me. They saw me for who I am, not for the version my family forced me to be. They are my chosen family. The Eleanor Foundation continues to thrive. It's not just a charity, it's a community. I am no longer just a benefactor. I am a mentor, a friend. I share my story to give others hope. Every time I see the gratitude in a young woman's eyes, I remember my grandmother's wisdom. She knew that true wealth isn't in a bank account. It's in the legacy you leave behind. I sometimes hear updates about my family. They are still bitter. They still complain. They still believe they were wronged. Their anger is their prison. They chose it, and they will live in it forever. I no longer feel anger or pity, just a quiet final release. Their story is theirs to live. My story is my own. The freedom I fought for wasn't a punishment for them. It was a gift for me. My grandmother gave me more than a lesson. She gave me a gift. She gave me my life back. A life where I was not just a pawn in a game of greed, but the captain of my own ship. The greatest revenge I could ever have was this: to be happy, to be at peace, to build a life so full of joy and purpose that their greed, their lies, and their toxicity had no place in it. I often visit the place where I planted the sapling. It's now a young, strong tree, reaching for the sky. A living testament to a new beginning. A monument to my grandmother's love. The end of a family revenge story isn't always a grand confrontation. Sometimes it's a quiet, honest realization that the greatest act of love for yourself is to create distance. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. My life is now defined by honest distance. I don't harbor anger. I don't wish them ill. I simply acknowledge that they are not part of my life. The drama is gone. My peace is non-negotiable. I learned that an apology without changed behavior is just manipulation. My family never truly apologized. They only said what they thought I wanted to hear, to get something they wanted. From a distance, I heard about their lives. My father, still trying to impress people with money he no longer had. My mother, bitter and isolated, clinging to a past that was gone. And Natalie, her life was a constant struggle. Her resentment towards me grew every day. She believed I had stolen her future. But I had only protected mine from their greed. I felt no joy in their misfortune. Their pain was not my victory. My victory was my freedom. My victory was my happiness. I had finally learned that my worth wasn't tied to their approval. The Eleanor Foundation became the living legacy of my grandmother's love. It was a testament to the fact that her kindness was a true inheritance. And I was simply a vessel for that kindness. My life is not a revenge story anymore. It's a story about resilience, about finding hope after betrayal, about choosing peace over chaos. It's a story about a woman who saved herself. The greatest lesson my grandmother gave me wasn't about money. It was about worth. She knew that my family would never see my worth, so she gave me the key to a different future. I now understand that love is not a transaction. It's not something you can demand or buy. It's a gift you give and a gift you receive. And my family had none to give. My final act of revenge was living a good life. It was proving that I didn't need their approval, their money, or their love to be whole. I was whole all along, they just couldn't see it. So what's the lesson here? The best revenge is not an action. It's a state of being. It's a peaceful heart. It's an honest distance from the people who only bring you pain. The old definition of family was a prison. It was a bloodline, a shared surname, a shared house. It was a word my parents used to excuse their greed and manipulate me into submission. It was a word that only brought me pain. But as I healed, I realized that family is not about blood. It's about trust, respect, and unconditional love. It's about the people who show up for you, not the people you are forced to show up for. I learned to reframe what family meant. My new family isn't bound by blood, but by choice. We shared holidays not because we had to, but because we wanted to. We celebrated each other's victories, big and small, with genuine joy. This was a love I had never known. I realized my grandmother knew this. The house was not a legacy of possessions. It was a test to see if I had the courage to break free from a toxic definition of family and create my own. The Eleanor Foundation became an extension of this new family, a community of women supporting women, a place where everyone was seen for their true worth, not for what they could offer. I felt no joy in my family's misery. The irony was that they had everything they thought they wanted. Each other, the family unit. But their greed had poisoned the well, and they were left with a thirst they could never quench. I had won, not by destroying them, but by building a life so beautiful and so full of genuine love that their toxicity had no place in it. I had replaced their empty house with a full life. The revenge story ended with them, still lost in their bitterness. But my story of liberation, of finding my real family, was just beginning. It was a new chapter, a new legacy. This is not a story about blood. It's about choice. It's about the courage to say that just because someone is related to you, it doesn't mean they belong in your life. That you are worthy of love, support, and belonging. My grandmother's final lesson was simple. The house was just a symbol. The true inheritance was the strength to build a home wherever my heart felt safe. And that home was finally here. For years, my work was about pleasing them. It was about grades, about promotions, about a future they had planned for me. My career was never truly mine. It was just a performance for their approval. But after I walked away, everything changed. My work became about passion. It became about purpose. It became about me. My success wasn't for them to brag about. It was for me to live. My book, The Eleanor Legacy, was a bestseller. It was a story of finding freedom after family betrayal. It was my truth shared with the world. It was a victory I had earned entirely on my own. I was on a news show, being interviewed about my journey. The host asked me what I would say to my family now. I smiled, looking directly into the camera. My answer was simple and honest. I didn't offer a bitter retort. I didn't gloat. I simply said, I hope they find peace. I hope they one day realize that true wealth is not in a house, but in a home built on love. I hope they can forgive themselves. Meanwhile, in their own house, they were watching. My father, with a face full of anger. My mother, with tears of resentment. My success was a constant, public reminder of their failure. They had what they always wanted, a public success story. But it wasn't theirs. They had to watch it from a distance, powerless, knowing they had thrown it all away for a temporary, empty victory. I felt no satisfaction in their pain. The revenge wasn't in their misery. The revenge was in my peace. Their downfall was a side effect, a natural consequence of their choices. My happiness was the true goal. I realized that the greatest victory wasn't in having a famous name or a best-selling book. It was in knowing my worth. It was in knowing I was strong enough to walk away from a family that never truly loved me. This is the final word on family revenge. It's not about getting even. It's about getting free. It's about leaving a legacy of healing, not of hurt. It's about building a life so full of purpose that your past becomes irrelevant. The end of a story isn't just about what happens to others. It's about what happens to you. I used to be a ghost in my own life, a person defined by my family's expectations and their cruel games. The revenge was never the goal. The house was never the prize. They were just catalysts. The true treasure was the journey to find myself buried underneath years of their manipulation and emotional abuse. My personal growth was the ultimate victory. I became strong enough to set boundaries. I became brave enough to say no. I became wise enough to choose peace over an endless battle for their love. I learned to forgive myself for not being enough for them. Because the truth is, I was always more than enough. They were just too blind to see it, blinded by their greed. The greatest gift my grandmother gave me was the key to my own freedom. She didn't just give me the house, she gave me the strength to walk away from a life that was killing my spirit. She gave me the courage to live authentically. My victory isn't in their downfall. My victory is in this quiet moment. It's in the ability to sit here at peace with a full heart, knowing I am worthy of all the good things life has to offer. I am no longer the girl who is silenced. I am the woman who found her voice. I am no longer the victim of a toxic family. I am the survivor who built a beautiful life from the ruins of her past. The story of family revenge isn't about winning a fight. It's about winning yourself back. It's about leaving behind a past that tried to define you and embracing a future you chose for yourself. And so, our story ends. A story of a daughter's struggle, a grandmother's last lesson, and a family's twisted greed. But more than that, it is a story of liberation. The world often tells us that revenge is a sweet dish best served cold. But I have learned that the best revenge isn't a dish at all. It's a garden you plant and tend to, far away from their barren wasteland. My family's victory was a mirage. They won the house, but they lost their reputation. They won the money, but they lost their integrity. They won the battle, but they lost the war for their own souls. My grandmother's final gift was not the house. It was the wisdom that allowed me to let it go. She gave me the courage to choose myself over the expectation of a family that had never truly loved me. I now live a life that is truly mine. My success is my own. My love is my own. My peace is my own. It is a life built on authenticity, not on appearances. This is my true victory. So, if you are out there feeling trapped by a toxic family, remember this story. Remember that you can rewrite your own ending. You can choose to walk away. You can choose to be happy. Your worth is not measured by their approval. Your worth is in your kindness, your resilience, and your courage to build a life on your own terms. Your happiness is your greatest revenge. After watching Samantha's journey, you might see parts of your own story in hers. Maybe you feel trapped by a family that doesn't see your worth. Maybe you are fighting a battle you can't win. This is the most important part of her story, and of yours. This is where you decide what happens next. This is your call to action. It's a choice you can make right now. So what are the lessons from this journey? What are the keys to your own liberation? The first lesson is this: your worth is not tied to their approval. Your family's love does not define you. You are worthy of peace, happiness, and respect, simply because you exist. Don't let their neglect become a mirror you look into. The reflection you see is not who you are. It's a reflection of their own failure. The second lesson: the greatest revenge is personal liberation. It's not about watching them fail. It's about watching yourself succeed on your own terms. Your happiness is the most powerful weapon against their toxicity. The third lesson: you can and should build your own family. A chosen family is built on trust, respect, and mutual love. It is a family that shows up for you when your blood family doesn't. The fourth lesson: you can turn your pain into purpose. Your trauma is not your identity. It's a part of your story that you can use to help others. You can be the light you wish you had in your darkest moments. The fifth lesson: you have the right to walk away from a toxic family. You are not responsible for their happiness. You are only responsible for your own. You have the right to walk away from anyone who drains your peace and joy. If Samantha's story resonated with you, let us know. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What was your biggest takeaway? What's the first step you'll take towards your own liberation? And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience, triumph, and personal growth. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss a single episode. Remember, this is not an ending. It's a beginning. The beginning of your new, beautiful story, written by you. Thank you for watching. Until next time, be safe, be strong, and be free.